Well, good evening. I'm Lee Clancey, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of Linn County. The League is a nonprofit volunteer political organization which neither supports nor opposes any candidate or political party. The League encourages citizen participation in government and is open to anyone ages 16 years or older. I could feel that coming. This forum is part of our voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections, and we hope that over the course of this program you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for our county. Welcome to this candidates forum between Joel Miller and Ben Rogers, who are running for the office of Linn County Board of Supervisor from District 2. I will start by explaining some procedures for the forum, which each candidate received ahead of time. So, here are your instructions, candidates and audience. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We flipped a coin, and Joel Miller will go first. And 2 minutes for a closing statement, and because Joel is going first for the opening statement, Ben will go first for the closing statement, and 2 minutes to answer each question that is posed. Opening and closing statements will be done in the order that I just gave you. The timekeepers are sitting right here in the front row. When there is a half a minute left on speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up the card that says 30 seconds, indicating that you have 30 seconds to answer. At 15 seconds, the timekeeper will hold up that card, and please wrap up when you see the stop sign. If you continue speaking after the stop sign is held up, I will say thank you very much, and we'll move on. Candidates will confine their statements and responses to relevant issues and refrain from any personal attacks. This forum is being recorded by Robin Cash in the back of Neighborhood Network News and will be available to watch at the linncounty.org website. The LWV linncounty.org website, and at www.neighborhoodnetworknews.com websites. Pro Video in the back here is live streaming this event at the Pro Video Productions Facebook page. So if you have not done so already and you own one, please turn your cell phone onto mute right now. If at any time during this forum you can't hear either me or either of the candidates, please raise your hand and let us know, and we'll adjust the microphones or speak louder. Please remain quiet throughout the forum. I would ask that you not clap, cheer, or call out, with the exception that after their closing statements, you may clap for both of the candidates if you wish. You are encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on the provided pieces of paper that look like this. They are available over here, or a league member may bring them in the back, or a league member may bring them around. They come up to this table for sorting, because many people ask the same questions, and so the sorters will try to kind of group the same sort of questions. Questions must be addressed to all candidates and must apply to issues or qualifications for Linn County Supervisor. Raise your hand if you'd like another piece of paper or to have your question collected, and one of the panel members will review the questions for legibility. So please, if you're writing your questions, please write legibly. Clarity and applicability to all the candidates. I will read as many questions as we have time, sometimes combining similar questions, striving to cover a variety of topics. So with that, we will start with the candidates' opening statements, and Joel Miller, you will go first.
Well, I'm Joel Miller, your county auditor, and I've been your county auditor for 11 years. Before that, I was the mayor of Robbins, and I am now currently running as an independent no-party candidate for Linn County Board of Supervisors, Linn County Supervisor District 2. I'd like to read something that I found on the web, and I quote, "When it comes to local governments, the Board of Supervisors, an unusual breed of government. What makes it unusual? The fact that we have to run as partisans for a position that really isn't or shouldn't be partisan. The Cedar Rapids City Council members, for instance, do not have to run as Democrats or Republicans, but state law requires that we do. Potholes are not Democrat or Republican issues. It's simply a pothole that needs to be filled. Helping people with mental health issues, physical and intellectual disabilities are not partisan issues. Ensuring that local workers have a level playing field to work on local reconstruction projects with a good wage should not be partisan. I'm in favor for a change in state law that would make Board of Supervisor races nonpartisan. The author of that blog post is Ben Rogers. He wrote that in December 22nd of 2011. So I hope tonight we can talk about issues and not partisanship. I, as I said, am running as an independent no-party candidate, and Ben is running as a Democrat. So there's two of us in the race, and looking forward to discussing issues tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Rogers?
Thank you all for attending, and thank you to Auditor Miller, and a special thanks to the League of Women Voters who put on this forum and allowing us the opportunity to answer your questions and share our different visions for moving Linn County forward. My name is Ben Rogers. I was born and raised in Cedar Rapids. I attended the University of Iowa. I was a volunteer firefighter in Mount Vernon, and my wife and I are proud to be raising our two children, Kieran and Penelope, in Linn County. I tell you this because Linn County is incredibly important to me, and I have a vision and plan to help us move forward. I'm running for re-election for 3 reasons. The first is to ensure that individuals with mental illness, disabilities, and substance abuse challenges have a voice and an advocate on the Board of Supervisors. I call Linn County the safety net for the safety net because we are often the provider of last resort. And it's for these reasons that I'm working to create a behavioral health access center, which will divert individuals with mental health and substance abuse issues away from hospital emergency rooms and jails to treat their illnesses. The second reason is your county taxes are lower today than when I started in 2009. And I have helped accomplish this by reviewing each line of every department and elected official's budget, by making county operations more efficient and being mindful of using your hard-earned tax dollars. And Linn County is one of the only counties in Iowa and one of the few in the nation our size that has a AAA bond rating, the highest possible rating. And lastly is to continue to implement business principles and practices to make Linn County operations both more efficient and effective through Linn County's customer-centered culture initiative. Our goal is to enhance both your experience and your expectations when doing business with Linn County. So I do look forward to taking your questions this evening.
Okay. Did that go back on? All right. I think I can speak loud enough for you to hear me. Okay. I'm going to have alternating. They're going to alternate answering the questions first. So we'll take Mr. Miller first. And the first question is about qualifications. What personal characteristics do you have that make you uniquely qualified for this position? Personal characteristics.
My personal characteristics are that I believe in integrity, I practice integrity, I tell the truth, I believe I do what's right for the taxpayer on a daily basis. Certainly I'm not perfect, but I believe that I'm looking out for the common person, the people in Linn County that maybe aren't doing as well as everyone else. For example, 1/2 the households in Hiawatha make $44,000 a year or less. Half the households in Cedar Rapids make $55,000 a year or less, and half the households in the overall county make $61,000 a year or less. What's that mean? That means that we need to be conscious of that in everything we do at the county level, and that's what I've tried to be, is conscious of that. When I look at where expenditures are occurring, and when I question things, I have those people in mind when I do that. Because I think that's what we need to be paying attention to. If half the people are not doing that well, you need to be empathetic to that and conscious of that in your decisions, and know that your decisions have an impact. Know that when you're spending too much money or money on the wrong priorities, that it has an impact. So I think my qualities are integrity, tell the truth all the time, and do what needs to be done, make the right decisions, and try to work through those decisions every single day.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
The Rotarians have
Sorry, Mr. Rogers.
That's okay.
I was looking at
it happens never. Rotarians have a really great saying, and it's service above self. And I think that people who get into office or run for office wanting to serve others before anything selfish, I think make very effective and responsive leaders. Prior to being on the board, I worked as a youth care worker at Four Oaks, where I worked with children between the ages of 6 and 12 who were either privately placed or court-ordered into a residential treatment program, often because of the severity of the abuse that they've suffered and trauma throughout their life, and therefore having a lot of behavioral issues. And that was really my first experience of social services being delivered. I've worked in the private sector prior to being elected and was also a volunteer firefighter and a community volunteer. After being elected to the board, I really understood the impact of what I just called the safety net for the safety net, that the county is often the provider of last resort, and that can often mean the difference between someone being in a shelter or someone finding housing. And so really embodying that idea of service above self is, I think, the qualification that I bring to this job, and is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about serving and so invested in ensuring that people who face barriers, whether it be mental illness, disabilities, substance abuse, or systemic issues related to poverty, I really want to address those issues, and that's really what drives me and what I'm passionate about in this job.
Okay. Mr. Rogers, you will answer this question first.
Okay.
So this is about responsibilities. Tell us your experience, and actually there's several questions that are in the same category. Basically, what are the responsibilities of the Linn County Supervisors, and what is your experience in managing multiple departments?
Sure. The Board of Supervisors is one of the interesting positions in government where we both are the legislative and executives of the county. So we are currently a 5-member, and we will be going down to a 3-member board where we oversee about 19 department heads, have over 700 employees who report to the board, and oversee a budget of $120 million. So unlike city councils, or like the Cedar Rapids City Council that has a city manager, we do policy. We do the ordinances, we evaluate our department heads, we interact a lot with the elected officials and set their budgets. So there's a lot of administrative and managing responsibilities. That also requires you to understand a lot of the complex issues that the county deals with, everything from mowing of ditches all the way to systemic issues related to poverty and violence. And so you really have to be well versed and rely on not only your staff, but become intimately involved and passionate about those issues. We do operate, like I said, a $120 million budget. We have our department heads that report to us, and we set the budget. So we manage the county in that way, and in that respect, the board doesn't have different departments underneath themselves, but we are the chief executive officers of a very large organization.
Mr. Miller.
The county is about 750 employees, full-time equivalent employees. About 200 of those are in the sheriff's office, 17 are in my office. There's I think about 35 or 40 in the treasurer's office, another 15 in the recorder's office, and I think the attorney's office has around 40, 45 people. So the board oversees about 2/3 of the employees, of those employees. My experience has been that in my past experience, I've got about 20 years of management experience before I became the auditor in the private sector, as well as experience in the nonprofit sector. Actually, Ben and I worked at Four Oaks of Iowa at the same time. I worked there about 3.5 years as the IT director. But in my past, and another little trivia thing is I worked with Ben's dad, Dan, at Teleconnect. And that's when I came to Cedar Rapids. And that Teleconnect then became Telecom USA and MCI. and then WorldCom. And during that transition, I managed people across the country in Cedar Rapids, San Jose, California, Kansas City, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Louis, and Chicago. So I had several work groups. I was in middle management there. Went to work for Siemens, managed major multi-million-dollar projects for Siemens in Santa Monica, California, and in Detroit, Michigan, and Charlotte, North Carolina. So my management experience spans about 20 years, so I'm not a rookie at this. I've done it. I've managed managers and set expectations for them to deliver.
Okay, and following up, you'll be answering this first, following up on a comment that was made by Mr. Rogers about going to 3 supervisors. There are 2 questions regarding that. How will having 3 members of the Board of Supervisors change the working of the board? And along with that, how is the work going to be divided up?
Well, I think how the work will be divided up amongst the 3 is yet to be determined when the 3 get together. And they'll do that in January of 2019. I've been the auditor, so I've during the transition from 3 to 5, and now it'll be coming back to 3 again. So I saw how it worked when there was 3 people there. Certainly, the advantage that's talked about with 5 is the collaboration that it can occur by any 2 supervisors to discuss things. I also view that as a flaw. A flaw in that I believe that decisions and lots of discussion that occurs upstairs in the private sanctity of offices upstairs on the 3rd floor are not occurring in the public view in the meetings where they should be occurring. So it looks to me like decisions have been made before people come to vote, and I know that's been denied by other supervisors, but you can't help it. If you're going to get together and have a discussion, you're going to have some issues that are already discussed, and you're not going to want to reopen those. So how will the 3 work? They worked that way for 100 years, that we had 3 and it worked just fine. I don't see any real difference other than there's 2 less people for the public to contact to have their issues resolved. So I believe it'll work. It can work. It'll be decided how it works. Maybe they'll be spread a little bit thin. But in my opinion, I've never thought that the supervisors have been full-time, so I think that they will be able to get that work done. And if I'm elected, I'll be transparent about what's going on. You can check my pass key, you can check my mileage log and see where I've been. You'll know whether you can look at my meeting schedule and see what's going on, and I'll be publishing that information.
And Mr. Miller, same question. Stop it.
It's quite all right.
Ben.
Thank you. Well, I have been a county supervisor since 2009, and I came onto the board when it transitioned from 3 to 5. And certainly having 2 less, I think, will impact representation, particularly of rural Linn County residents. They'll have, I think, 2 fewer. So it'll be incumbent upon the 3 to really ensure that they focus on their concerns and are reactive. Since 2009, when Supervisor Olson and I came on the board, I think the complexity of the issues we're facing and the velocity in which they're coming at us now has increased. We're the 2nd largest county in the state, and certainly have the 2nd largest city. This is a full-time position, and it is a very challenging job where no 2 days are ever the same, because you deal with such a wide variety of issues, from everything, as I said, of the mowing of ditches, all the way to mental health and disability services. And so it will be very interesting having 3 members, and I think maybe one of the benefits is you'll see a lot more robust discussion in public, and certainly if you watch our meetings, there are many times you can tell we have not discussed an issue and we are flushing it out for the first time in public, and so maybe that will lend itself to more discussion, but certainly having that ability to walk into Supervisor Walker's office or Supervisor Harris and say, I have an idea, can I bounce it off of you? I think that helps make good and better policy. And now that is a quorum. So I think a lot of decisions we'll be making will be on the fly and in public, but we'll learn as we go along. And certainly this is a full-time position. The issues that we are facing are quite complex and do require full-time attention.
Okay, keep that microphone.
Okay.
All right, you will answer this next question first. It's actually a two-part question.
Okay.
You're both elected officials, or have been. What is your greatest success as an elected official, and what's something that you might like a do-over on? How will those things inform your work as a supervisor?
I'd like to have gone second. That's a great one. That's a wonderful question. And you know, I was incredibly, I'm very proud of something that is still in the works, and that is this Behavioral Health Access Center that I'm creating in partnership with law enforcement, Linn County, both area hospitals, mental health and substance abuse providers, to really create a co-located facility with all these service providers where individuals can finally be diverted out of emergency rooms and jails due to their mental illness or substance abuse. So it's not up and running yet, but we have RSM, which is McGladdery's project managing this, and it will be one of Iowa's first access centers. And that is something that drives me, I think, every day, because this has the potential to fundamentally change how we treat people with mental illness and substance abuse. And I would say a close second was certainly increasing the minimum wage. In terms of a do-over, I'm sure that there was, we have a variety of issues that we hear from residents on, and I'm sure that there were budgetary considerations that we made, that certain programs we didn't fund. It's hard to really think of something I really would like to do over. We made a lot of decisions pretty quickly during the flood where we didn't have a lot of information, but I'm proud of the way that we rebuilt. I'm proud that we focused on local labor. If I had to do something over again, it might be, I'm hearing from rural residents, the fact that the board, I think prior to us coming on, or when Brent and I first came on, we banned the burning of leaves, and certainly in rural communities that's putting a lot of burden on property owners who don't have leaf collection, and that may be something where we might want to explore finding more common sense ways to allow them to live the rural lifestyle.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Miller?
Thank you.
As I indicated, I've been the auditor and commissioner of elections for 11 plus years. My vision is every person engaged in local government. And I've tried a lot of different things as the auditor to increase voter turnout, to increase participation, to increase transparency. And just recently, sent out a mailer with a sample ballot. Caused a little confusion, but the benefit of that I think will show at the polls on November 6th by the turnout that we have. Remains to be seen, but that's the latest thing that I've tried. We have more satellite polling places this year than we've ever had due to hiring a voter outreach person. I've had a voter outreach person that was bilingual, that spoke Spanish. So we reached out to Spanish-speaking voters and constituents during that period of time. So it's been an ongoing try things. Some things work better than others. But if you don't try anything and you just maintain the status quo, that's a safe place to be. And that's where I see a lot of people in government. They want to be in a safe place, not doing things that might get them on the front page of the paper. So I stand behind what I've done. What could I do over in 11 years? Well, you know, you probably are thinking of something, whoever wrote that, that I could do over. But you know, I think there's always things you can do. I said up front, I'm not perfect. I don't think you're going to have perfect people running for public office. That's not going to happen. And with the way the qualifications seem to be headed, maybe nobody's going to be qualified.
Okay, keep the microphone.
Okay.
I was asked to use the microphone. I don't know if this is on or
We
not.
can hand you our microphone if that.
Or does that one work too?
Well, but they're doing crosstalk, so you might want to just use
Well, maybe they won't if I'm over here.
Want to give it a go?
Yeah, see if we can do that.
We're all in this together.
Is it on?
Testing, testing.
No. Okay, well, all right, we will, we'll try and hand this back and forth.
We can do it.
Okay. All right, so you're next up first. And these are two questions that have to do with mental health. We've talked about it a little already tonight, but basically what is being done to continue mental health care once offenders are released? And then the second questioner asks, or states, my friend had to take her son to the ER tonight due to an acute severe anxiety attack, and there are no beds for him. He must spend the night in the ER. What can our county government do to help?
Well, the first question was in regards to, I think, people being incarcerated.
Yes.
And what are we doing to reduce that? I think we're trying to get them help when they leave the jail. There was a recent update from the director of Linn County Community Services in regards to this, trying to, as people are leaving the jail, to give them the information to, for example, make sure they're getting back onto Medicaid, Medicare, that they know that they can call Foundation 2 or various agencies to get help. So I think we're trying to ensure that we're getting those people care when they're exiting the jail, so that hopefully they won't reoffend and get back in there. That they will have medical coverage, so they can get assistance for their medical condition if they have one. And we all know, or at least I think it's a common fact, that the jails have kind of become de facto holding places for mentally disabled people, that something like 25%, 30% of the prisoners are there because of some mental condition. Yes, there's been an access center proposed by Linn County, by Supervisor Rogers. I think there's also several that have been proposed by the governor. To get out there. So waiting to see what the state's going to do. We certainly don't want to duplicate efforts and spend $3.5 million if the state is going to come up with some funding to provide some state-funded programs. Looks like I don't have time for the second part.
Okay.
As Auditor Miller mentioned, there's a lot of concerted effort to ensure that people who, once they are incarcerated, you may or may not know that when someone, if they're on Medicaid and they are arrested, even if they are found not guilty, they lose their Medicaid eligibility during their time in jail, and they have to reactivate their Medicaid. There's a lot of effort to make sure that people, they have a number that they can call and they get that activated. That can oftentimes happen very quickly, or sometimes that can take months. And if you need psychotropic medication, if you have depression, those days matter. And so really getting yourself covered helps to at least try and break that cycle of recidivism of whatever it is that may have landed you in jail. So there's the RISE program, there's a lot of Fresh Start Ministries, there's a lot of nonprofits out there that really try and connect people to services, whether it's transportation to get to their psychiatrist or doctors. We really try and surround people with services to make sure that we really try and end these cycles of recidivism. And to the person on that second part, I'm very sorry to hear about your friend. And I think that that is an unfortunate, very common occurrence of people having to go to the emergency room for crisis. It is one of the most inappropriate places to treat someone in crisis as an emergency room, as is a jail. And that is because emergency room doctors do not have a place that they can safely divert people to. And that is why I am creating an access center. And yes, the state has proposed that they would like some in the state of Iowa. They have not funded it. They've barely written the rules, and there's no application process. And so I'm not going to wait for the state to take several years to figure this out, because there are people sitting in emergency rooms who do not belong there and should not belong there.
Okay. I'm just going to stand here because you're going to answer this
Okay.
question first. This is about homeless shelters.
Sure.
All of our homeless shelters are full. Where will homeless families go?
You know, as I said before, you know, we're a growing community, and part of those, part of the challenges and opportunity of becoming a growing community is we're seeing higher incidences of poverty, and certainly I think we're seeing more instances of homelessness. Certainly since I can remember growing up here. If you go underneath any overpass, any bridge, you will find either people there or evidence that people have been there or will be coming back. I recently did a point-in-time count from, it was midnight till 4 a.m. It's done twice a year, and this was in the low battery. In the summer, and we found 30 people. And so homeless shelters are full, and homeless shelters have certain restrictions and requirements, and the important part is to find these people and get them into housing. And so really, if you want to address the homeless issue, we need to have a housing first model, and that's something that Supervisor Walker and I have certainly talked about and we'll be working towards with the City of Cedar Rapids to get people rapidly into homes, no matter if they're sober, if they have drug addiction or whatever. Take care of sort of that Maslow hierarchy of need of food, safety, shelter. Get them into a home. Get them services. And once you get people into a home, you can really then start to deal with some of the other issues related to homelessness, like hypertension and diabetes and a lot of the other physical things that are not taken care of while they're on the street. So there's a lot of things that we can do as a community. I think I look forward to partnering with like the City of Cedar Rapids to create a housing first model, and that will go a long ways to help deal with not only homeless individuals but homeless families. The highest percentage of homeless in our community are children, and we really need to be able to get children into safe, stable homes.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller is next. So I said, thank you. And Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Well, when I was in Santa Monica, working out there with the Department of Transportation for the City of Santa Monica is a very rich community, and they had a lot of homeless people. Of course, the weather was much better, much more accommodating for homeless people there. But they had the city had built a shelter for these homeless people. I still think it overflowed, and I still think there are people that don't want to go to that shelter and be a part of that and wanted to live on the street. And so you would see in any given parking lot at night shopping carts with belongings in it, and there wouldn't be any people around, but you knew they were somewhere around there. So I don't think we have any government-sponsored shelters, at least in Linn County, that I'm aware of. I think maybe Johnson County has done something, but certainly it's a problem. Certainly it's a problem when the weather is bad and people have a chance of freezing to death. We need to take some emergency measures there, and I think that we did open up some places for them to reside, so we didn't have anyone losing their life over that weather. But poverty, as I said, I mean, you know, half the households in this county don't make a great deal of money, and how many people are one step, you know, one paycheck away from being homeless? We certainly need to do things to raise all the boats here, so that the overall economy is good enough that people can fend for themselves.
Thank you. And you will have the first shot at this question. We're going to change gears a little bit. What is your position on tax increment financing?
Well, the county doesn't currently use tax increment financing. Certainly the cities of Cedar Rapids, Marion, Hiawatha have used it. Certainly you're referencing the article in the Sunday paper about tax increment financing. It is one of the only tools that cities have to finance development projects and expand. And so, of course, being that's the only tool that they have, that's the one that they use. And I think the article in the Gazette was clear about the use of that tool by the cities, because there's not much else left for them to do. We already have a local option sales tax. We have we pay an extra penny for the schools. That's the only thing that's really left. Counties have not. This county has not went that route. Other counties in the state that have using the windmills for power generation have used it to build facilities to those. So my position is that certainly I don't believe the county has a need to do that at any time soon. I have not seen any requirement that the county do it. The cities are going to do what the cities do, but my position is that should be certainly a last resort by the county, and I don't see anything on the horizon that would justify the county using tax increment financing at this time.
The county can only offer tax increment financing to businesses that reside in the rural unincorporated area of Linn County, and I think there's, in the time that I've been on the board, there's only been one TIF, tax increment financing, given or in front of us, and that was MSI Mold Builders, and that was all public discussion. They were talking about maybe moving their facilities and operations to New Jersey. We had already had a TIF in place. So that's the only TIF that I'm aware of, and again, it's very restrictive, and there aren't many businesses that reside in the rural and incorporated outside of a municipality. But TIFs are used as a development tool, and I think they were originally used to really help with blighted areas, to encourage infill development. But they, Hiawatha uses them, Cedar Rapids uses them to attract development and businesses. Certainly having, that's one tool in the toolbox. It's not the only one. Having a good quality of life, having quality of life amenities that attract the next and now generation or make people want to live and stay here is critically important. Having an educated and trained workforce helps businesses make decisions on whether or not they want to come here. Certainly tax increment financing helps with their bottom line, but a TIF is only as good as the employees that are able to work there, or the facilities that, or the amenities that are offered, or the quality schools. And if you don't have those, then TIF really doesn't help you incredibly. And I would hope, as TIFs are starting to be closed out, and I know that there was an overpayment of $2.7 million to the city of Cedar Rapids, that the auditor's office does put some processes in place to ensure that those kind of overpayments are known ahead of time, monitored, and not having such a high dollar sticker shock at the end of a TIF.
Thank you. And this will be your first answer. The city of Cedar Rapids is needing somewhere in the neighborhood of $78 million to address flood control. What responsibility does the county have in this, and what is the county doing to protect its largest tax base?
Good question. The city has not formally requested a dollar amount from the county yet, although they are certain to be coming to us shortly to help with their gap in flood wall protections. And of course, we have vested interest with the courthouse and the jail being on Mays Island, so anything that they do will impact the island. But counties are restricted in the amount that we can bond for projects such as flood wall protection. We can only bond up to $1.5 million. And so this will require the county to ask the voters to decide how to use our bonding capacity. And certainly we would want to be involved in the process of designing the flood wall system with the city, the aesthetics of it, who the contractor is. We want to be, if they're going to ask the community for a large sum of our bonding capacity, we really need to be intimately involved in the beginning and not just write a check at the end. And we also need simultaneously to be designing protection for Mays Island. A lot of the times with Mays Island, even though the water isn't going over the flood walls, it is the pressure that is put on the sewer system that creates backup into our sub-basements and creates some challenges. So we have to both ensure that our infrastructure on the outside keep the water out when the water rises, but also when there is pressure on the storm sewers, we also have to have the ability to respond quickly. So everything in the jail, everything in the courthouse and the basement is not critical to its infrastructure. It's conference rooms, it's things that can be moved and cleaned quickly. But certainly, with the time remaining, if Cedar Rapids shortly will probably start making formal requests and requesting more participation from the county, the new board will have a decision to put that on the ballot, and then the community will have to decide.
Let me quickly address the comment made about the $2.7 million. If you read the Gazette article, you hopefully read that the city disputes that amount. That's why there needs to be a reconciliation of those dollar amounts. They don't agree that they've overpaid, and they don't believe that it'll be that amount. So it's good that it saw the light of day. That's because of the transparency I brought to that issue, and that's the transparency I brought to many other issues that have been in the paper, because it wouldn't have been in there had it not been for my transparency in that particular issue. 59% of the population in Linn County resides in Cedar Rapids. 60% of the workers in Linn County work in Cedar Rapids. We should not have to wait for the city to come to the Board of Supervisors to start talking about what we're going to do about flood control. They have the budget right here. Not a dime has been allocated for flood control in this year's budget by the Linn County Board of Supervisors. Why not? It's not, Mays Island is not the city of Cedar Rapids, part of Linn County. Why are we not doing something proactively? Why are we not working with the city of Cedar Rapids and going to them and saying, how can we help? Why is it that we're waiting for them to come to us? We should be going to them. They're a part of us. They are the manufacturing center of eastern Iowa. Linn County is the manufacturing center of eastern Iowa. And where does all that manufacturing capacity lie? In Cedar Rapids. I've lived here 32 years, almost 32 years. I've never lived in Cedar Rapids. For 32 years, I've worked in Cedar Rapids. We have a vested interest in ensuring that it doesn't continue to flood, that we don't have to shut down our county buildings every time the water rises, and we need to get with it and be proactive and reach out to the city and quit waiting for them to come knocking at our door.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Miller. The City of Cedar Rapids, we're talking a lot about the City of Cedar Rapids tonight. The City of Cedar Rapids has sacrificed many beautiful historic structures to a concept of progress that not all Cedar Rapidians share. Is there any appropriate role for the county in advancing a more effective historic preservation plan?
I'm not sure that the county has jurisdiction in these areas to countermand the city. I mean, we don't like it when the state comes in and preempts us on certain things like they have done with minimum wage. For example, I'm not sure that it's a county's role to go in and preempt anything that the city's doing with the historic buildings. Seems like there's a waiting period, if I'm reading it right, on many projects in which a historic building is going to be modified or torn down, that goes through a certain review, a citizen committee, which we have appointed. Many citizen committees have been appointed by the Board of Supervisors. That committee weighs in on whether something is of such value, historic value, that maybe it is not demoed, maybe it's moved. So I think there's already citizen reviews of this. We give money to other cities for historical renovations, like the Main Streets program and so forth. And we let the cities determine what it is they're going to spend that money on after we've given it to them. So I don't think, certainly we can make suggestions on any number of things as the Board of Supervisors. But as far as requiring someone to comply with something that we have, I'm not sure that ordinances are the appropriate tool. Certainly maybe persuasion and having a conversation would be more appropriate to do that if we think that there's something that we need to have a say on. But I think that'd be new ground for us to be doing. I think we've got enough other things to work on at the county level, and that wouldn't be high on my priority list.
When the county had the opportunity to sell the Mott building, which is right down on the river next to the police station, the county had purchased that well before I was on the board, and we sold it to a developer. It stipulated that it had to stay in its current form. They couldn't demolish it, but they had to repurpose it. And it is that's one example of Linn County owning a historic piece of property and mandating that it stay in its historic nature. It's now loft apartments, and it's a multi-use, and there's businesses. I believe the county does have like a historic preservation commission. Again, it doesn't have teeth like, and I don't think the city historic commission has teeth in the sense that they can deny, the demolition of a certain building. Certainly, they are there to advise the city council, such as the historic preservation is to advise the board of supervisors. We take their advice very seriously. When you destroy an old historic building, it's gone forever, and I think that part of the history, when you can incorporate it into community, is what makes a community great. So I would encourage anyone, whether it's historic preservation or anything else, to go to our website at linncounty.org and look at the variety of commissions and different boards that you can be on. If historic preservation is something you would like to be on, whether it's for the county or the city, I'd be more than happy to help you through that process or advocate for you on your behalf. So I do like questions like this. It's not our normal course of business to do historic preservation, but it is it's one of the important elements of county government.
Thank you. Okay, really different question. What is the county doing to stop or slow human trafficking in Linn County?
That's a great question, I think, for law enforcement. Certainly, I'm starting to see in restaurants and gas station bathrooms signs up in both English and Spanish about human trafficking. I think that there are efforts to make people more aware that this is happening in our community, that it is a very real issue. Certainly, law enforcement would have more interaction and more involvement than the Board of Supervisors would, but this is an issue where you are seeing people. I think that the way I think it relates back to the county and one of the missions is that there are systemic issues related to poverty. And if you are not dealing with systemic issues related to poverty, you have people who are driven into and are vulnerable to human trafficking. And so there are things that the county can do. Again, we are that safety net, whether it is providing crisis services, doing early intervention, identifying people who are at risk or vulnerable to human trafficking, and so we can do that both from a service perspective as well as having law enforcement trained and certainly open and understanding that this is a very real issue. And I think a lot of times human traffickers or people who are victims, they're found out because someone had the courage to ask them if they're okay, or can I help you, or are you all right, because something just didn't feel or look right about their situation. Those are rare, but certainly there are news stories about that, and I think our law enforcement does everything that they can to identify vulnerable populations, those who may be in situations of human trafficking, and certainly hopefully involve law enforcement as well as the county attorney's office.
How many of you, when you go out to eat, actually look in the kitchen and see who's working? That'd be nice, you know, if you did that. We like, as a community, we like low-cost food at our restaurants. We like to go out and eat and not have it cost very much. And maybe there are some people working in those restaurants that are not as documented as they should be. Maybe they are the victims of human trafficking. Where are they? They're working there. You know, how close do we really want to look at this issue? Do we want to get beyond our comfort zone and actually, we do a good job of talking about human trafficking, but what are we actually doing ourselves? What are we doing to root it out? Certainly in the Gazette, there's lots of story about various places for massage, and that's where the, you know, everyone is so worried about the human trafficking that goes on in those locations. but are they inspected by the county public health? Do we want to look very hard at some of these locations? So, yeah, human trafficking is probably happening. It's supposed to be happening in Iowa, right? We've got we're the major crossroads with I-35 and I-80. Supposedly a lot of that's going on here, but what are we really willing to do? And are we really willing to do that? It's going to cost us more money. So I think you got to figure that out if you really want to do something as a community. And I haven't seen an overall, you know, a wave of people that are really concerned about that. And when that happens, then I guess we'll get serious about human trafficking. And certainly I've seen more media attention on it, and there's more awareness, but what are we really doing? That's the question.
Thank you. This is going to be the last question before closing statements, and so I will give this off to you. It's about community involvement. As a supervisor, you must care about the community you live in. What do you do outside of your working hours to give back to or participate in this community?
I've been an active member of the Metro North Rotary for, I think, before I became the auditor. And that means participating in those activities. They have some projects. Metro High School is one of our major projects in Metro North Rotary. We work a lot with the students. We work with the teachers and so forth. And that's one of my major activities that I participate in. I don't have as much time to participate in the community as I like. We have, my wife and I, Sylvia, we have 8 grandchildren. So we're a bit busy going back and forth between them. But I have been involved in the past in my church, St. Joe's Catholic Church in Marion. I was a finance chair. I was the chair of the parish council. May get back into to those activities. What I see is that there's a lot of activities that the current board members are involved in that seem to take them away from the board meetings. Sometimes the absentee rates of the board members is not 100%, and it makes me wonder what is more important than being in a board meeting. There's 3 meetings a week: Monday at 9, Tuesday at 9, Wednesday at 10. So why are some you know, some board members had already missed, I think, 16 meetings from January until August. So I think you can get too carried away with being on other boards and in participating in other community activities instead of focusing your attention on the job that we're getting paid 6 figures to do. And so my plan is to focus on operating the county and not some other organization.
With a responsibility as large as being a county supervisor, it is really important to be involved in the community. As I alluded in my opening, I was once a volunteer firefighter. That was important to learn about emergency management. And I was brought up to be involved in the community. My father is a volunteer paramedic. My mom serves on a lot of nonprofit boards, and my wife is a court-appointed special advocate for people who are in the foster care system. She advocates on behalf of children. We take our son, Kieran, into people's homes delivering Meals on Wheels. And I can't think of a better organization if you find yourself with an hour or so and you really want to make a difference. Sometimes these people, that's their only interaction for the day or for a very long time. I was recently reappointed by the governor to the Iowa Council on Homelessness. I serve on the board of the Area Substance Abuse Council. We have a very emerging opioid and fentanyl epidemic. And you can't really learn about these sitting behind a desk. You do have to get involved and to truly understand the issues and how they impact people. I was recently awarded Community Advocate of the Year by the ARC of East Central Iowa because I advocate for people who have disabilities. That helps inform the policy that the board takes up. It helps us create better policy by being involved in these community organizations, either part of our job or outside of it, to really have a universal view of what it means to be a community member here, because not everyone lives in a house, not everyone has a car, and not everyone is able-bodied. So you really have to kind of get out there and experience how they live to make more informed, better policy. And so I'm very proud of the volunteer efforts that I and my family are part of.
Okay, thank you. I believe that both candidates will be available for a few minutes after the forum is over, after their closing statements. There were a few questions that we didn't get to because of time constraints this evening, one on ADA compliance, one on online information access, one on the spending of the building on 6th Street Southeast, top 3 issues for Linn County in the next year. I think you've kind of covered those things. And also donations that you have received and accepted during your campaign. So if your question did not get asked this evening, please don't hesitate to ask them after this whole forum is over. With that, we're going to move on to closing statements, and Mr. Rogers, you are going first.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you all again for coming out this evening, and again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for all of their hard work, their dedication and outreach to make sure that people are part of the electoral process. I really love the quote, "Decisions are made by those who show up." So thank you for showing up tonight and with your vote. Auditor Miller and I, we have different visions for the future of Linn County and differences in how to manage the second largest county in the state with a $120 million budget and over 700 employees. Linn County is a growing community, and our rapid growth brings both challenges and opportunities, and will require someone who has a proven record of accomplishment on important and impactful issues like raising the minimum wage, mental health, disability, and substance abuse advocacy, economic development, and quality of life initiatives. A proven record of fiscal discipline. Again, your county taxes are lower today than when I started in 2009, and that includes a recession and flood recovery. And a proven record of creating and maintaining good working relationships with other municipalities, elected officials, nonprofits, the private sector, and the state legislature. The board is decreasing from 5 to 3 members, and it is very important to have a supervisor who understands county government and the need to work together in common cause with others to advance issues forward. It is an honor and a privilege to serve as your supervisor, and with your help, I will continue to work and fight on these important issues. I ask for your vote either by absentee ballot, which starts, I believe, on October 8th. Correct. Excellent. Or on, if you go to the polls on November 6th, and you can find out more about me and my candidacy on my website, benrogers.org. And again, I want to thank Auditor Miller for this wonderful exchange of ideas. And thank you all for your interest and your questions. This was quite an evening, so thank you.
Mr. Miller.
I too would like to thank the League of Women Voters of Linn County for holding this forum tonight. I'm running for supervisor to protect the taxpayers from the big spenders on the Board of Supervisors. How? By not allowing any new debt except for flood control and flood protection. How? By collaborating with Linn County cities and school districts to reduce overlapping services. How? By focusing on the day-to-day operations of county government with an eye toward reducing costs while maintaining and improving legally required services. My vision is efficient government for the people. My stance is I'm for the people and not the bureaucrats. And my practice is, if it's not true, don't say it. I again appreciate the League for putting this together. A little bit on the personal side of me, so you know a little bit about me. I grew up at a dairy farm north of Independence, Iowa. But it was not just any dairy farm. It was a dairy farm where we pasteurized, homogenized, bottled, and delivered milk door to door. I learned about customer service at a very young age. I've been customer service focused in every job that I've had. I've been a deputy sheriff, a city marshal, an ambulance driver, a military policeman for 3 years in the U.S. Army. Managed a hotel and worked as an electronics technician. I've worked for 3 Fortune 50 companies, AT&T, MCI, and Siemens. And I've had, as I indicated before, 20 years of management experience in the private sector. I've been an IBM business partner. I've owned my own business. I've served on the Robbins City Council for 4 years and was the mayor of Robbins for 2 years. I've been the county auditor for 11 plus years. My wife and I, my wife Sylvia and I have been married for 41 years. We have 3 adult married children and 8 grandchildren. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your attention.
I think that we are extremely fortunate to have the quality candidates that we do for District 2 Board of Supervisors. So thank you both for getting into this race, putting yourselves out there, agreeing to represent those of us in the county. It is not an easy thing, and it's getting harder all the time. So thank you very much for the energy and the effort and the time and the willingness to do this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you also to the City of Hiawatha for providing this facility to the voters, and as both these candidates said, if you haven't already, which you can't until October 8th, but please remember to vote. It's very important. Every vote counts. Thank you for coming tonight. It's great to have you all here.